My name's Justy Phillips. I did my PhD in the School of Media and Communication. And my supervisor was Lyndall Jones and Jessica Wilkinson. So the title of my PhD was Choreography Composed with a Hole in the Heart. And it was really about bringing into language the living experience of a hole in the heart. And I mean that in a physical, metaphysical, theoretical and actual process of engaging with this idea. What I guess it led to was the more accurate proposition of how to transform a hole into an opening. And that's really a key point that I got to in the research and an interesting place to leave it as well. I guess a few things I'd like to say. The thesis composed of 190 events. That included a live examination event at the Mission to Seafarers building in Melbourne. And it also included images, creative writing, videos, and these 190 events were brought together to create the thesis. And ultimately this work I see now at the end of this process as bringing into language the experience of a hole in the heart. I've followed Pia's notes to the note here. So the key challenges, I guess the first thing I wanted to say was narrowing down the focus of your research, and that's definitely something that the others have touched on, to trust your instincts and find out, I guess, what you want to get out of the work and what is important to you. Because there are a lot of other opinions and you will be engaged in a huge amount of reading and seeing things, but ultimately it's what's important to you. And that really led me to change the direction of my research. I'm just including a few stills here from the thesis itself. So I did this by developing a series of techniques for art making that I came to understand as a process of speculative eventing. And that process I call fictioneering, and that's been a really important trajectory to take me out of the PhD and into the ongoing work, this idea of fictioneering. I guess as advice I'd say keep drilling down until you hit a seam that feels like the work, and you only know when you get to that point that something's clicked. For me this was firstly a process of coming to understand that the work was totally entwined in the body. Secondly, it was about understanding that the body was something I had previously not understood as experiencing in that way. That the body was, for me, a hole in the heart, the vessel of the heart. This body that you walk around in, but your connection also to landscape and place and time and duration and events. So developing a way of composing with this event of the body became the main focus of the work in year 2. And finding a way of communicating that really became the focus in year 3 and 4. I guess my next advice would be finding a balance that works for you. For me, it was very much about how do you find a balance between engaging in the rigor and the depth of reading and thinking and making and feeling, and balancing that with the stamina that it requires to do that for the long haul. And I guess everybody has their own sort of factors and situations, but for me, this health issue of a heart condition really was a massive undercurrent through the work the whole time. If I wasn't researching it, I wasn't reading about it, I was feeling it, I was getting into all sorts of trouble all the time. So it was really something that I launched into, but became a very big part of the work. Even when the work was not about that, it was always about that. I think a really important point is deciding what's important and then finding a way to filter out everything else and finding a way to get to that point. So probably early on at the beginning of the second year or the end of the first year, I realised that I needed to go away. I went to Mexico and Iceland to start this engaging with the body of research. And so it was about then logistically planning how to get there. Again, using the university in terms of funding for conference funding and lining things up together. So that was really important. One of the things that I'm most proud of, and I'm kind of happy to say that in this experience, is sort of negotiating the expectations of the academy and choosing to do something differently and really sticking to that regardless of the potential outcomes. So like I said, the way that I conducted my practice-based research was through a process that I'm called research creation. So during my candidature, I went to the Sense Lab, which is, P&O's is a lab out of Concordia University in Montreal, engaged with this idea of process philosophy and the event. And they really have taken research creation as a hyphenated sort of term betweening about the event. And that's something that I responded to very well. So the thesis is made up of 190 events. And by the thesis, I mean the exegesis and the project work, the artwork, all as one body. There's no introduction, there's no literature review, there's no conclusion, there's no research question, there's no methodology and no methods, and it passed fine. So there is another way to do it if that's important to the integrity of the work, which for me it was. I guess advice to candidates would be, trust your instincts and be open. Go to as many conferences as you can, and conferences that are really outside of your comfort zone. Ask yourself how you might use the work of others to activate your own research. And if I've got a few minutes, I'd just like to write something, because one of the interesting things that I managed to do in the writing of the thesis was integrate the work of other people, I guess, in a community of practice, by using my own process of creative writing to enter into their works and weave them into the thesis. So I'll just read a couple of paragraphs. So this is from the thesis document. Event 169. I must be on the other side of the highway. At first I see only darkness and then the silhouette, matte black and immobile. I join its lines into a shape that appears as two-dimensional horse. After a few seconds, illuminated momentarily by a passing silver-grey sedan, its score of distended ribs etches diagonal lines into the back of my late-night eyes. A lone, emaciated horse standing on a highway in Tirana. I am transfixed not by its absent light-dead body, but by the backlit light landscape of its standing. Yellow-green light from a nearby apartment block hangs from concrete edges, making the shape of the horse's undercarriage into the horizon of an imaginary mountainscape. It is so quiet and so still, this air, that I almost do not feel its violence. Drifting in and out of focus, he and I share lines of fuzzy concrete that blur his standing into mine intermittently. It is unusually quiet, and the muted tones of distant automobiles and barking hounds do nothing to soften my concern for its welfare. After a few minutes, another car, this time with horn blaring and yellow-white headlights. Only now do I see the horse balancing precariously on just 3 legs. The fourth, a rear hind leg, it draws into the light-filled mountain of its holding. This is the violence. This threshold that is not yet death. Time and again, my view is obscured by passing trucks that suck the horse's image out of sight and then back again, vacillating abstractions. Please don't fall. I grip my hands and synchronize my breathing to the horse's wavering leg. Please don't fall. What I really want to say is please don't fall while I'm watching. Between life and death, this is how we make our relation felt. This faltering Albanian horse and I, carving space and time with our passing. In a duration of just 5 minutes and 22 seconds on a backlit LED screen, I feel the unbearable weight of his lumbering frame as the unknowable darkness of our falling. This is my experience of Time After Time, 2003, Albanian artist Anri Sala's intimate video document of an emaciated horse's not yet falling into the speed of an oncoming highway traffic. So I just wanted to share that because I didn't include images of anybody else's work apart from in the end notes at the end of each arc. So the way that I also wrote from first person throughout the whole thesis, and that's the way that I engaged with other people's work as if I was there. So this is obviously me just watching a video on my laptop at home of this video work. Yeah. So I'd say set yourself small tasks in those massive learning curves. It is true, every page you read, every line or 100 words you manage to get down means something. It keeps you moving, and I think that's the key. To get, everybody gets completely overwhelmed, tears, the lot. But my experience is it's about just keep doing something. It doesn't really matter what it was, and then you'll turn around one day and you'll realise that all that doing something that you didn't realise what it was actually the thing. Great, now just write about it. No. So, I think that's the key. Be open to chance encounters, which my work and the whole research really relied on these chance encounters, like I said, through working in Mexico and Iceland and not wanting to put a dampener on the broken bones, but I also fell off an Icelandic horse and fractured my skull, which became a really important part of the project as well. So I think being open, definitely. Oh, that is a really good and practical point. When you travel with RMIT, make sure you get their travel insurance because it's excellent. Yeah. And you might need it more than once, yeah. I'd say don't underestimate the force of creative writing. When I started the PhD, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, I had really never written an academic document in my life. Don't even ask me how I got to the point of being accepted. But it's true, I sort of managed to Skype my way through various other degree courses without actually doing that much of the work, maybe, that I should have done. Anyway, so I got to this point of suddenly wanting to read philosophy and engage in ideas and writers that I had never read about at this level. And it's bloody hard. It's really hard. And you think, I'm never going to understand it. But you just, read a little bit more, try and get involved in reading groups and like you say, talking with your peers. And I think all of these really small steps come together. And I did have a post-it note that said you can't eat an elephant all in one bite, which I loved. Find a way of writing that makes you feel good. And the thing that stressed me most for the first 2.5 years was thinking that I had to write in the way that I imagined the Academy wanted me to write. So I tried to write like that, and it was so boring and so laborious and so hard that I thought, this can't be the only way. And then, as I got more confidence in my own writing, I realised that that's the direction that I wanted to pursue. And then I just pursued it. I didn't ask people. I didn't talk to my supervisor much about it. I just did it. And then suddenly we're at the completion seminar. And, I've written some stuff and that's good. And it's all in, and I think sometimes if you commit so far in one direction, everything's going to be okay. You just keep going, make sure it's good and it feels good. Because I just made this note here, knots in small intestines and guts only get worse. Try and find a way to live the work that makes you feel in balance with your life. Try not to be too mean to the people you live with because it's a long haul and that's only going to last so long. And I think that all comes back to feeling good about your work and finding your own way. And again, it comes back to the stamina thing. And I certainly felt that with, someone who was also trying to manage other sort of, bodily and physical restrictions, that it's all about the stamina. And have breaks if you can. And I wish I had known at the beginning that the act of writing could feel so good. That's what I'm going to end on. Thanks.